Good afternoon or evening, and welcome. Kensington Senior Living has 8 unique communities, 5 located in Virginia, Maryland, and New York, and 3 sister communities located in California. Kensington is truly privileged to support care partners and professionals from coast to coast. Kensington focuses on relationship-based care, care built on the foundation of our promise to love and care for your family as we do our own. It is programs such as the one you are attending now that are so important for those of us walking through a caregiving journey to hear from expert professionals on keeping us current with the latest advances in care, management, and treatment of conditions that affect our families. I was first introduced to Kensington over 10 years ago, as my father was a resident there for almost 7. Today, you are in for a special opportunity to hear from top social workers about Alzheimer's and brain disease. November is National Alzheimer's Awareness Month, and we are excited you are joining us. Everyone that registered for today's event will receive a copy of the webinar to share with friends and family. Also, please utilize the Q&A function submitted to submit questions to our panel. We would really like to encourage a conversation with our audience. Before I introduce our moderator today, Bonnie Wattles, I just would like for the audience to think about 2 questions. What is one small moment from today that brought you a sense of connection with your loved one? And the other one is, what is one thing you wish that others understood about caregiving with someone with dementia? With that, please join me in welcoming a dear friend, and I can call her a dear friend. I've known Bonnie Wattles for about 6 years. Bonnie, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it's longer than that. But Bonnie is the executive director with HFC, formerly Hilarity for Charity. And I was first introduced to HFC because of my love for providing and assisting in fundraising for caregiver support. So they are a really important component for those of us walking through a caregiving journey. Bonnie, take it away.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm thrilled to be here, be able to talk about Hilarity for Charity and lead this incredible panel of expert social workers. So as many of you may know, Hilarity for Charity was founded by celebrities Seth Rogen and Lauren Miller Rogen following Lauren's mom's diagnosis of early onset Alzheimer's at the age of just about 54. Lauren and Seth had just started dating and were falling in love, and this very challenging situation came up in their life. And so they decided to turn their grief into action and create a community for the younger generation affected by this disease. And more importantly, wanted to reframe Alzheimer's not as an old person's disease, but as a public health crisis requiring national attention. Today, Hilarity for Charity delivers critical hands-on support to families at every stage of the Alzheimer's journey. To date, we've awarded over 530,000 hours of free professional in-home care to relieve the family caregiver. We also provide other supportive services such as virtual support groups, care navigation, financial coaching, and other wellness programs. Each year, we reach about 2 million people through our direct programs, our large-scale, larger-than-life events, and our vibrant social media presence. But our mission doesn't stop at caregiving. We are leading a national youth-driven movement to educate and empower the next generation through brain health education and programming. So our goal is to get young people focusing on their brains early on and learning how to live a brain healthy life. And we also just believe in the power of storytelling and moments like this, where we're talking about it, to change the narrative around Alzheimer's disease. And so we hope through our celebrity platform and press appearances that we can get people talking about this, reducing the stigma and diagnosing earlier. And on a personal level, I come to this work very personally, my father is 90 years old and has mild cognitive impairment. So I'm particularly excited to introduce you to our incredible panelists and talk about the caregiving journey. So I'd like to start with Alyssa Girangeli. She's from the Dolby Memory Sutter Health Center. And so Alyssa, why don't you give us a short introduction?
Thing. Thank you, Bonnie, for the introduction. My name is Alyssa, and I'm a associate clinical social worker, and I'm part of a really great team at the Ray Dolby Brain Health Center, which is a neurology clinic in San Francisco. We have a team of neurologists, nurse practitioners, social workers, and neuropsychologists. And a big part of my role is partnering with patients and family members to provide that longitudinal care really from the start of diagnosis kind of throughout their journey with us. So excited for today's conversation.
Thanks so much, Alyssa. Veronica, I'm going to popcorn over to you.
Hey everyone, my name is Veronica and I'm the social worker for the Gorvik Center at Cedars-Sinai. I have the privilege of helping families navigate this difficult journey. I help support the caregivers in the support groups along with our Lewy body patient group, and I'm also involved in some of our education projects. Happy to be here today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Monica Moore from UCLA.
Yes, hi everybody. Thank you so much to Kensington for hosting us today. So my name is Monica Moore. I work at the Mary S. Easton Center for Alzheimer's Disease Research and Care at UCLA. We are a comprehensive care center that focuses on clinical care, helping people get proper diagnosis and proper evaluation of Alzheimer's or other forms of dementia. Also, we have clinical trials and we have really smart researchers trying to figure out this disease and trying to find a way that we can intervene. And then we also really importantly have caregiver support through 10 virtual caregiver support groups, which I manage.
Amazing. So before we get started, I just want to encourage, let everybody know this is meant to be a roundtable discussion. Reminder, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A function. And just thank you to everybody for sending us questions during the registration process, and that's how we're going to focus the discussion. I'm going to direct the questions to our panelists, but panelists feel free to jump in and have this be more of a discussion. I thought it would be really great to start with sort of the care planning process. So many of us come into this caregiving journey unexpectedly, very abruptly, and it can be very daunting. So we know that building a plan is really important. So Monica, let's start with you. How can you build a support team?
When I work with our families, I tell them just look around you. Like, look around. All of our communities are different. All of our family structures are different, whether we have biological family or friends that are family. And I always encourage people to just take a look, see who's there, see, are there even neighbors who could be people that you can rely upon? And while we never like asking for help, I think humans in general are really bad at that. We're always willing to help. So if Bonnie said, Monica, I need something, I say, Bonnie, of course, what do you need? When can I drop it off at your house? Just because that's what we do. And if you reframe your situation and you think about how your neighbors and your community are going to feel that way towards you, in the same way you would feel towards them, I think that sort of opens the door. Because, dementia itself, it's such an isolating disease upon diagnosis. And families feel like they're the only ones who've ever dealt with this. They're worried about stigma. They're worried about all of these other ways that this could really impact their life. And so I say, I'm like, start being willing to put out some feelers. I guarantee once you put out a feeler to someone, they're going to say, oh, actually, I know somebody else who has gone down this road. Let me connect you with my friend who just cared for her mom. My next door neighbor, oh, his husband, has dementia. So finding these ways where we're really able to start branching out a little bit and not allow this to be so insular and so lonely. And also like local organizations. We all have local Alzheimer's focused or caregiving focused organizations. Either, here in Los Angeles, we have a great number all across the country, wherever all of you are, there are organizations. I think also in this virtual world, we're able to expand so much more. I have people in my support groups that are, again, we're in Los Angeles, but I have people who are in different parts of the country just because it's virtual. So they're all in their living room, no matter where they are. So finding that these resources do exist. And also, I just always like to tell people, you don't need to know everything. You shouldn't know everything. If you've never had dementia, face dementia or face caring for somebody, you don't know the resources. But you shouldn't, just because why would you know that information? You have lots of other information in your mind. So reach out, find the professionals, find your medical center, find your doctor, establish a relationship with your doctor as well. The doctors that I work with, they are really appreciative when families ask, when
Right.
they ask additional questions, as opposed to, okay, I went for my 15, 20-minute doctor's appointment and then I leave and I don't see them again. So they really do appreciate, because then it's showing that you are an engaged caregiver and that you really want to do the best for yourself and for your loved one as well.
That's great. Thank you so much, Monica. And I agree. It's so hard for us to ask for help. And I do think our friends and network and family really appreciate it when you say something very specific. But I'm going to interrupt us for a second because welcome, Trish. I'm so delighted that you can join us.
Thank you.
That was the first question. So we just went around and did quick introductions. So if you don't mind just giving us a quick introduction, that would be wonderful.
Yes, thank you. I'm so sorry. I seem to have had some technical difficulties. My name is Patricia Varallo. I go by Trish. I am an LCSW at Stanford Healthcare, where I've worked for 10 years. I am in senior care clinic at Hoover Pavilion, and we provide we provide care in clinic, face-to-face with patients. We also provide care in patients' homes, that the patients that can't get to us for whatever reason. So we go to them and provide their primary care. My colleague and I also perform community speaking. We attend community speaking events. We also facilitate a support group for dementia caregivers. So we do that bi-weekly. And we do that, it's an hour and a half each session. So I also am a former caregiver. My grandmother had early onset dementia at age 65. And this is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. So thank you. And I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank
Happy to
you.
have you.
Yes, absolutely. Alyssa, I'm going to direct this next question to you. Tell us about the role that social workers can play in helping a caregiver build a sustainable caregiving plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is so key to why we have social workers embedded on our neurology care team. A lot of the times we are having initial point of contact where we're doing an assessment, right? A biopsychosocial assessment, both for the patient, but also the caregiver, kind of getting a feel for, what's going well, where are their strengths, who is a part of their support system, what do they identify as an area of need, and really having us there to kind of slow them down, because diagnosis can be very overwhelming and kind of often, right, resources can be thrown at people. That can be a lot. And I think part of what we do is partnering with family members, partnering with patients, just to slow things down a bit and figure out, okay, where is our roadmap? What do we need to focus on right now? And of where we go from here. I think common topics that come up center around advanced care planning, questions around community resources. I mean, Monica had brought that up, and obviously not all clients have a social worker embedded on their neurology team, but there are great resources in the community. Often I'll recommend starting at the county level. In California, our counties have, departments of aging and adult services where you can get connected to a social worker. They've got, great online resource guides. A really valuable resource that often some of our clients are connected to is, it's called Caregiver Resource Center, and there's 11 in the state of California, and they're free nonprofit services for caregivers, whether it's support groups, whether it's support with long-term planning, financial counseling. These resources are out there, and right, folks don't know about it. Providers don't know about it. So if you have a chance to connect with a social worker at the county level, at a caregiver resource center, they can really kind of sit side by side, say, you've gotten a really tough diagnosis, things are not changing overnight, but we're here to walk you through it. So I think ultimately it's about partnering, slowing down, and just being a source of both education, but also sounding board. Because with this diagnosis, right, things are never cookie cutter, things come up all the time, and just having someone you can talk to can really help with the overwhelm and, again, making you feel like you're not alone in this process.
So you're a therapist too.
A little bit of that.
Yeah, and I think the slowing down, this is complicated. You know, this journey that I'm walking with my father right now is complicated, and you don't know what the next thing is that you're going to have to manage. And I find myself saying to my sister, let's just, let's just get through this day. Let's just get through this week. And I'll also add that the VA has social workers too. So if anyone is a veteran, that's another place to look for resources.
Bonnie, if I just want to chime in, just one thought too is just if you have walked this journey before with a parent or maybe with, a close friend, this is a different journey. So, the resources could be different. What person A used or what person A was eligible for might be different than person B. What worked for person A might be different than what works for person B. So, I always encourage people to be open, even if you've been a caregiver before, because things change and the people that you're working with and that you're caring for, they are very different. So approaches are going to be different as well. So I always just like to, remind people of that. Like this is a different situation, even if it's the same disease.
We like to
Absolutely.
use the joke, you met one person with dementia, you met one person with dementia because it could be such a situation different.
Yeah, absolutely. Veronica, what services, including respite care, adult day, in-home care, case management, would you recommend? And does that differ by different stages of the disease?
Yeah, kind of how Monica was saying, every situation is so different and it's such a layered question. I always tell families, look at the map, let's learn what's out there, let's learn about the diagnosis, but then focus on the bridge in front of you because that map can change. So if you're a person like in the early stages, you might want to meet with like a case manager, know what's out there, know what's available, maybe some in-home care hours in the beginning. I would encourage if you can start as early as possible, do it because you want to kind of create consistency. And also, your loved one has to get used to it, but so does the family. Someone's coming into your home, and that's not just, going to affect the person with dementia, it's going to affect the caregivers as well. And realistically, it could take a while to find a caregiver agency you feel comfortable with. So you want to like learn about stuff, try to research, try to connect with agencies, maybe start interviewing lightly because you don't want to do these choices in crisis where you need someone to come in tomorrow. And then at this stage, the disease progress, you just want to increase the care. I would encourage look at the lens through safety. What does, your loved one need to be safe in the home? What do you need to be safe in the home? And most of all, like how do we make this sustainable? In my caregiver group, we always talk about it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So we have to pace ourselves and adding in respite, adding in breaks, scheduling them in as often as you can to just kind of get into the habit.
Absolutely. I'm going to have one more question in this section. Alyssa, are there community or faith-based resources that can help provide support?
Yes, I think again, starting at the county level can be really helpful if you don't necessarily have access within kind of your immediate kind of medical team, but you would be surprised. I think people don't always know that social work is an option. I know in the Sutter system, even at the primary care level, if someone is interested in getting, caregiver respite services, or they want to receive a list of home care agencies, sometimes all you have to do is ask. Think a lot of times, right, we don't know what we don't know, but if you as a caregiver are feeling overwhelmed, talk with your primary care doctor, talk with your loved one's primary care provider. I think a lot of times for kind of the care partners in this situation, right, their physical health can be neglected. And I find that I'm often kind of giving them that push. Have you mentioned that you're not sleeping well? Or have you mentioned to your doctor you're feeling more panicked? So I think starting with what's in front of you and then hopefully having kind of the appropriate referrals out Someone had mentioned Alzheimer's Association. They're great. They have a 24/7 hotline. They have an online search tool that can really help narrow down some of those services, like the adult daycare programs, like the, activity programs. So the internet is your friend. I think there's a lot of resources out there. And from what I've been hearing recently from clients, even checking like with your church, if you are part of a religious community, often there are support groups in churches. I just talked to someone the other day who said that they've been going to this support group, and it's really great because there's a level of comfort to begin with. There's some familiarity with that community. But I also say, give it a try. Support groups, they might not sound like they're for you, but sometimes you dip your toes in the water and can always revisit it if it's not working out right now. But I think that's kind of key with this disease process is pivoting.
And Alyssa, I usually say too, it's like support groups are sort of like dating, right? Like you don't find the love of your life on your first date.
I like that.
Like you may not find that first support group on the first time that you try. It may be a total failure because it's personalities. And people will then say like, oh, I tried a support group, it didn't work for me. No, just that group didn't work for you. It's just like, just because you went on one bad date, did that mean that you were never going to go on a date again in life? Probably not. So, realizing and being open to the fact that you're trying, and the more you put it out there, that's where you're really going to find the support.
Yeah, I think we talk a lot about trial and error when it comes to these strategies for caregiving, but I think obviously the same can be said about, how care partners are taking care of themselves, and that certainly goes for trying something new like a support group.
That's great advice. And also check out HFC's on virtual support groups, which are led by credentialed social workers like you, and grouped by according to where you're at in your caregiving journey. But anyway, let's move on to Trish. Tell us about sort of the day-to-day nuts and bolts of caregiving. What kinds of routines or strategies do you find most helpful? And, give us some insight into that.
That's a great question. Thank you. I actually separated this into two parts because I wanted to focus on not just the caregiver, but also the patient, because it is a partnership. So what I always tell caregivers is that you can't care for anybody if you don't care for yourself. First and foremost, I always say that to our caregivers. So practicing self-care and using relaxation techniques. So there are all types of self-care that you can do. Some people think self-care is going to a spa and spending all day, but self-care can be just little incremental things that you do throughout the day and the evening for yourself. So using relaxation techniques, so that can be deep breathing, meditation, or yoga to manage stress in the moment and build resilience. Because you could be in a situation with your loved one where you're feeling really overwhelmed and you just need to take a break. Prioritizing physical health, and I believe this was touched on earlier, so getting enough sleep, eating a healthy diet, and staying hydrated. So light physical activity as well, because some people, they're doing 24/7 caregiving. That's not everybody's story, but if somebody is caregiving pretty much 24/7, it is hard to get out and get exercise. So doing what you can when you can, and that could involve taking your loved one even on a walk if they're able. So scheduling breaks, regular breaks, even short ones to recharge. This can include taking time for a hobby, reading, or just some quiet space time to yourself. Writing down your feelings. Not everybody is a fan of journaling, but it can be really, really helpful to get your thoughts out there on paper and process emotions, gain perspective, and identify the sources of your stress. Especially if you're accessing therapy, then you can bring that information to your therapist and work through it there. Building your support system. Staying connected, so making an effort to keep in touch with friends and family as they provide social interaction and emotional support. You want, and we talked about this, and I'm a huge supporter of this, joining a support group. I love our support group. Connecting with other caregivers can provide emotional support and practical advice from people who understand. It really releases people from that stigma and the feeling that they are alone. We see these caregivers that come into our support group, and not only are they receiving support from myself and my colleague, but they're receiving support from one another. And it is an absolutely beautiful thing to witness. Accepting help. Don't hesitate to ask for help. asking for help from family, friends, community resources and services. Consider respite care. This can be a really tough one for some people to talk about. And I think it's important to incorporate this in discussions with caregivers at the time of diagnosis, if you can. Looking into respite care services to get a break from your caregiving responsibilities. And that could be for a few hours, days, or longer. Sometimes people, transition their loved ones into respite just temporarily. It could be when you go on a vacation, or just need an extended break, or if you need to take care of some medical needs. Manage your mindset and schedule as much as you can, and set realistic goals. So understand you can't and you're not going to do everything perfectly. Set achievable goals and be kind to yourself when things don't go as planned. And it's really important too to learn to say no. A lot of times we're yes people, right? We want to help out and we want to do as much as we can. So it's really, really important for people to remember to set boundaries and to say no. So for the patient, this is really important. So for your loved one, these are so key. And helpful strategies for caring for someone with dementia involve establishing a consistent daily routine. So if you have a daily routine, you've got your predictable times for meals, hygiene, and to rest and to reduce anxiety and promote cooperation with your loved one. So if you're doing all of these things, it's going to help your loved one manage their day as well. And then hopefully you will both have a better day together. Incorporate familiar activities. So integrate previous hobbies or simple household tasks like folding laundry or gardening to provide a sense of purpose. Break down tasks. So divide larger tasks into simple, easy to follow steps. So that goes for, say, if you're helping somebody with bathing, just going step by step, because really for the person who is in the more advanced stages, they really need reminders for even just turning the water on, putting the soap on the loofah, all of those types of things. So patience is very, very key. So being patient and reassuring. So avoid correcting or quizzing. That's very, very important. So not saying, hey, mom, do you remember this? Or do you remember that? Because that can cause a lot of distress for the individual because they might not remember, or they might not remember at that moment. So respond to repeated questions with patience and with redirection. It can be really, really hard. Our caregivers list this as probably one of the harder things that they deal with. Just the consistent, what time is it? Where are we going? What are we doing? When is so-and-so getting home? So just responding to those very calmly, and then also redirecting. So for example, when I worked inpatient, we would have patients say, well, my husband's supposed to be coming home. Where's my husband? He needs to help me with the kids. And we would say, you know what? He's on his way. He's just a little bit late at work. Can we start maybe doing something over here? Let's go work on this activity. So redirection is such a great tool. So create a calming space. So minimize clutter and noise, keeping familiar objects and photos around to create a sense of comfort. Encourage regular exercise, something that the two of you can do together. This can be a walk, simple chair yoga, as long as it's tailored to their abilities, and make sure that they stay hydrated. And then provide ample rest. We want to make sure that we're giving our loved one the time to regenerate as well, because this disease is very exhausting because the individual is utilizing their brain at a very, they're just constantly trying to process what's going on. So being patient and giving them time to rest.
A question came in and you brought up respite care, and I was going to have Bonnie talk a little bit about that because HFC offers these grants for respite care. And a question came in, it came in from Virginia, but we're all kind of based in California. Bonnie's in the East Coast, but besides applying for a grant at HFC for respite care, and I know because I witnessed they gave a respite care for a lady that desperately needed knee replacement. Desperately. She could not function anymore, and they provided respite care for that. Is there any free respite care anywhere someone can go besides applying for a grant with HFC?
Unfortunately, no, unless anybody else on the panel is aware. I would love for that to be something that's available for loved ones and for the individual who's dealing with dementia. I wish.
And Bonnie,
I
go
was
ahead.
I always
Monica
encourage
go.
people though, like wherever everyone lives, you have different grants.
Correct,
Let's
yeah.
say like locally
point.
here we have an organization, Alzheimer's Los Angeles, that they do not have it now, so no one call them for this because they do not have it. But they had respite money based upon a grant. So it was short term, it was limited, but it was something. But it's also not something that they're going to do billboards about because it's short term, limited pots of cash. So wherever you live, again, one of the worlds of working with a social worker or finding a community-based organization is they can help connect you with what exists locally. Because there isn't anyone would say, hey, go to your area agency on aging. They have 100 free hours of respite for everybody. That doesn't exist. But locally, most people can find little pockets. And if it's 50 here and it's 50 here, well, you know what? That starts to add up and can make a difference. So reach out to your local organizations. That's really where you'll find, I think, the most benefit.
That's a really
Yeah.
great point, Monica.
I
And
also
respite,
want
sorry,
to add,
respite.
the like
Go ahead.
local organization regarding if you know the dementia type, because I know the FTD Association does the $500 grant, and that's national. So if
Mhm.
you're lucky to know your loved one's type of dementia, look into that specific, like Lewy Body Association, FTD, they might be able to offer some support as well.
That's a great point. And
Yeah.
also respite can be in the form of like talking about the smaller pockets of money. Adult day health is a form of respite, and there is a cost associated unless you can get a reduced rate if you have Medicare, or Medi-Cal, Medicaid. But yes, that would be a great utilization of the smaller amounts of money if you can access some grant.
And then actually, if I can chime in, sorry, one more time. I just saw in the chat, Lori put a note about the GUIDE program. So the GUIDE is a program, it is sponsored through Medicare. Not all medical clinics or medical structures are aligned with it. So again, look locally. I know in Los Angeles, UCLA is, Cedars is, and there's others as well. So GUIDE actually provides for a financial incentive. Jody put in there $2,500 of respite care. There's also therapy. There's an in-home assessment that happens. So again, look locally for that program, or you can go on the internet, type up a guide for dementia Medicare, and that should give you some of that information.
The Medicare website actually has a great map. That's how I find when people live outside of our radius, their local guide program. But you do have to have original Medicare.
Yes. Yeah.
And Bonnie, you can share, I can share. Jody and Karen offered 2 programs through Medicare, Lizzie Care, and then a respite program offers $2,500 of respite care with moderate or severe dementia. So I suggest that you look at your Medicare, or look at a Medicare, because maybe your loved one that has it is Medicare appropriate. Go ahead, Bonnie.
And it is open enrollment. So if they're going to make the switch, you want to make it now.
Oh, great
Right.
advice.
Asking about programs like this. And then also if you have access, if you have paid into long-term care insurance, we'll cover things like this. A lot of people don't have it though. Some of our patients and families do, but not everybody does because it is pricey. So
Yes.
Thank you.
And also challenging to actually have it pay out, but I've done it, so it is possible.
yes, I've heard
And
that.
I'll just say for respite, I mean, certainly HFC care grants are out there. They're wonderful. You know, it's limited only by the amount of money that we can fundraise. So the grants are limited. But what I will say, because we do measurement and evaluation is baked into the program, and if you can get respite either through in-home care or adult day, which is a less expensive way to get some relief, it really, our caregivers say that it, you know, absolutely reduces the stress associated with caregiving. It makes them more physically and mentally prepared for the caregiving journey. And so there's just so many benefits to it. So if you could somehow even get a neighbor to do it for you, it's absolutely worthwhile. I'd love to move into some of the safety concerns that can occur at home: wandering, falls, medication errors, all of those things. And why don't we talk about those? And are there any assisted devices that can make caregiving safer or more manageable? Alyssa, why don't you kick us off with that?
Sure. Yeah, safety comes up a lot. I think as we're talking about dementia progressing and functional changes taking place, safety is really number one that I tend to work around with families, especially if someone is perhaps living alone. You may have an elderly parent who, right, they've been in their own home for decades, and it's very much their intention to age in place, but concerns are coming up about kind of how feasible that is. I think, of course, there's a gray area where it's not always safe to be at home, but if there are ways to extend that time period, we do talk about kind of these safety devices with something like wandering. I mean, of course, this can feel very personal, but sometimes families may talk about installing some cameras in the kitchen, cameras in areas of the home that, may present a fall risk, cameras at the front door. So not necessarily someone who needs 24/7 care, but maybe it's not realistic that someone is checking up on mom or dad every day. But with these cameras in place, it can kind of buy you some time. Let's say you have a loved one who still is, able to go out on their own. They like to walk around the block. We want to value that agency, but there's a little bit of concerns about getting lost. Something like GPS tracking products, AirTag, special card that goes in the wallet, activating Find Friends on their cell phone. I mean, these are kind of little tips and tricks that can be done really to kind of prolong that period of independence. I think if someone is, let's say, living in a home with other family members, this came up actually in my own family where my grandmother was living with us at the time, and 2, 3 a.m. she would get up, she would try to open the front door, try to open the back door, and it got to a point where either she was going to leave the house or a pet was going to get out. So our family had actually installed like some special locks where, it's almost like a hotel room where you've got this little flip of the switch that goes up high. And for someone kind of at that stage, they're not necessarily going to be able to troubleshoot that, right? So it's a safety product that, kind of mitigated the risk, right? Harm reduction, that's a big word we use. Something like that, you have to be careful. You wouldn't want to do that if someone's living alone, but if it's feasible for your situation, there definitely are just these products that can be purchased really to give peace of mind and allow your loved one, right, the freedom to be in their own home as long as they can.
And that's great. I would love to add to this as well a couple of things. So the wandering and the the AirTags, that is a really great tool. Those are really great tools. You can purchase those things through the Alzheimer's store. You can also purchase a lot of these things on Amazon. So the door alarms and other things. But I also wanted to mention the in-home safety piece. We work with this a lot. All of us do in our day-to-day work. So one of the things that we do in our clinic is talk about home safety. So home safety is avoiding falls, wandering, things like that. And you can't keep your eye on your loved one 24/7. So thinking about when the individual is at a stage where maybe they're not living alone, where they maybe have caregivers 24/7, or they have family coming in frequently, or they live with their loved one. So asking for a home health referral for occupational therapy to do an in-home assessment, physical therapy as well, so that they can assess how your loved one moves, walks, and what their gait is like. So keeping all of those things in mind, they will assess your home, make sure that you don't have any trip hazards, and also that you have enough equipment in the home. So things like grab bars in the bathroom, things like a shower chair, over the toilet commode. And then also it's really important to think about, do they need a cane? Do they need a walker? All of these things they need to be measured for so that it's an accurate fit for them. So these are really important things so that you can also promote their autonomy, and also, like you had said, Alyssa, aging in place, which is so important. So these are some things that you can talk about with your care team to help promote home safety, and also for yourself if you're providing care, or if you have people coming in to provide the care. These types of heavier lifting can really hurt your back. So do you need to maybe access some kind of a lift at any point if your loved one is really unable to assist you with transfers, with getting into the tub or the walk-in shower, things like that?
And Trish, too, we talk a lot about safety, and when we talk about safety, we talk a lot about physical safety. But
Correct.
I also always flip over a bit too, as well as to the emotional safety of the caregiver.
Mhm.
Where, we're not just worried about someone tripping and falling or someone knocking on the door and saying, "Oh, you need a new roof," and we're going to scam you for thousands.
Right.
It's an emotional safety as well. So again, people with dementia can sometimes be violent. They could, sometimes be angry. And the caregiver needs to be emotionally safe because then you're going to provide better care. So looking at all of your resources that exist to be able to provide for that. And sometimes the greatest self-care isn't the massage or the facial, it's drawing the hard line. It's like setting these boundaries. And this is what's, I think, really hard for caregivers is because, like, well, but I said I'd always keep him home. Or no, I'm never going to do that. But in reality, you as the caregiver are the one that's starting to fade because it's
Mhm.
no longer safe for you. So realizing that again, use a social worker, talk to the social workers, talk to your network about finding the right time and just having conversations. Because that is what will open up for that emotional safety as well, that there's a place where you can put these feelings and it doesn't just store inside of you.
That's such a great point. And
Monica.
letting them know too that that's okay. Like we just had this conversation in support group a couple weeks ago, and they were like, I told my mom, I told my dad that I would care for them at home. And I said, yes, those discussions you did have, and those were beautiful. I'm glad you had those discussions. You were able to.
Totally.
However, nobody can predict things are going to look like as this disease progresses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have a
Yeah.
question that I want to address, and thank you so much for participating, audience. And this is really an interesting question, and I don't know if we have the answer, but I want to find out. Um, Scamming people with dementia, I guess, is a new thing.
It's so
So,
bad right now. It's really bad.
yeah, Veronica, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I feel like it's such a hard time right now because scammers are so creative and they're so smart. And I know people that don't have dementia that have been scammed.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
something to have to be so alert, not just for your loved one, but also like the caregiver. And then beyond scamming, there's a lot of commercials out there for things that might help. And what might help costs thousands of dollars. And people need hope. They want to try everything and anything. And it's just kind of making sure you're protected, passwords for everything. Maybe like second out of when they have to like send a text to your phone to make sure you're getting passcodes could kind of help. Simple things like not opening the door. I've had caregivers with simple like notes, like don't open the door, like just like
Mhm.
a sign, and that helps their loved one from like not opening the door to
Mhm.
strangers. But it's such a difficult time that I think we all have to kind of be on alert just to
Yeah.
without sharing information if not necessary, and just kind of doing our own research when people are, selling us something. If it's, how my mom used to say, if it's too good to be true, like it's probably not true.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we tell our families too what one of the things that happened recently was someone was getting on their banking app and paying bills over and over and over and over and doing things like that. So or moving money around. So we talked to that caregiver about removing the banking app from their loved one's phone. We also talked about you can put basically it's like programming the phone as if a child would use it, but limiting the access to certain things. And you can do that through Apple. So you can call Apple and make an appointment with the Genius Bar, and you can look at ways to limit access to certain things that could put them at risk. You can also set your phone, and with the newer versions, this I just set up myself. If it's a number that is not in your contacts and you do not recognize, it does not come through. So things like that are also really, really great.
That's super
Okay.
helpful, especially since the majority of scams are coming through the phone. There's also a phone specifically designed for people living with dementia called Raz Mobility. I'm sure there's other brands. That's one brand that I know that really simplifies it, so wouldn't allow those types of things to come in. This is such a great conversation, Susan. I'm going to keep going until you cut us off, but
Going.
um, the issue of medication management came up. I'm going to throw it out to the group. It's very challenging, especially as people age and they get more and more medications. And so medication adherence is a really big problem, as is getting to the actual doctor. They're two separate conversations, but would love to hear your thoughts on it.
Alyssa, you want to start?
Oh,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I mean, I think this does come up a lot, especially in the earlier stages where someone may be relatively independent, but they're starting to make more mistakes with their medication. I think often the first solution that's proposed is, hey, let's maybe get you a pill box. Maybe on Sunday dinner when your family's coming over, maybe they help you fill the pill box. I mean, that can certainly buy some time. But with that being said, often we'll still encourage, some degree of oversight, a little bit of kind of working in the background just to make sure that medications are being taken properly. I think as someone, evolves with their symptoms and moves through the disease, and family may be more heavily involved with medication management, especially with maybe some behavioral symptoms coming up, agitation, medication can become more central to kind of helping this person be at their equilibrium, can be a little bit hard. And sometimes families may use maybe some therapeutic storytelling around, this is going to help you with your headache. This is going to help you feel better. So a lot of the times, if your parents acting out, they're really upset, they're really angry, your doctor prescribed you this medication because you're aggressive, isn't necessarily going to land. So I think coming up with language that's not going to be scary for them, and trying to make sure that they feel like they have agency in the process. But it does really involve family, caregiver, or someone else kind of taking on that role gradually over time.
And medication reconciliation too, what we're seeing with some of our more advanced patients, advanced dementia patients, is we will do a medication review. What can we cut out? What does the person absolutely need? Because the more pills that somebody has to take, especially if they're in an advanced stage and they are absolutely refusing, what medications do they absolutely have to have? And then also when the patient is still able to manage the medications on their own, there are some really great products where they're medication reminders. Some are super fancy and a little more expensive, some are not, but they set alarms and some will even dispense the pills at the same time that the alarm goes off. So that's another thing as well, but you have to kind of see if it's appropriate for your loved one.
Yeah. Something else too that sticks out, the idea of bubble packs or medisets from the pharmacy. If someone is having trouble kind of organizing on their own, that can be helpful. But yeah, I think creativity and again, pivoting, it might not work. I had a family who their loved one really did not like the pill box, but responded really well to the morning medication just being put in a little bowl with breakfast, and they stuck with that. It's not always this one size fits all way of doing things.
Sounds like that's a common conversation we're having today. One size does not fit all.
Absolutely.
Bonnie, do you want to close this out?
Sure. One last question. When is the best time to start having conversations around future wishes and advanced care planning?
Monica, you want to
Yeah.
start?
Monica, you want to start out?
I always say once you start thinking about it, that's the time to start having it. It doesn't mean that that's where anything has to be done. But first of all, advanced care planning is something that everybody here on this call, those of us presenters and listeners, should all have. You do not need a dementia diagnosis for advanced care planning. We should all have this because God forbid what happens to any of us after this. So all of that is stuff that we should be doing anyway. That should just be a norm in our life and in our society. It's not, but it's something that we should all model for people, for yourself, as well as for the person that you're caring for. If we're talking about home care, daycare, placement, start looking, start talking to people, start interviewing agencies. You may never, ever use them, but wouldn't you rather know a good place to call? Because what if you fall and you break your ankle and you now are out and your loved one still needs help? So for as simple as that, you need somebody to come in and help. And then it's a short term and it's limited. And then, once you get better, well, then you say goodbye and I'll keep your name on file. But I always say, once you have had that thought of, oh, I wonder if I should start, that's your time that you should start.
Mhm.
And also, again, know the good care facilities, know the bad places. Find a placement specialist, find someone who can help you find what is in your area and what meets your needs, because the needs are so vastly different. So start looking at all these things. Again, access a social worker who can help to see what you are eligible for, what you say if there's Medicaid, Medi-Cal changes that are happening in the beginning of the year, how will those impact your eligibility for Medi-Cal in terms of the assisted living waiver, in-home supportive services, any of those types of services. So it's best to just get ahead of it. But as we've said a lot already today, is that this isn't stuff that had to be done yesterday. This is stuff that you have time.
Yes.
But, keep that in mind. So don't beat yourself up on, oh my gosh, I went to this lecture and they said, mentioned all these things, I should have done it. No, just start your list today and then start talking to people, seeing what's available, see who can help you, who can help guide you, and really just being open. I think that's a big piece too, and being open to anything, regardless of the promise that you made or what your desire is. I could pretty much guarantee that the person you're caring for wouldn't want you to go down with the ship. So they want you to take care of yourself through this, and it's going to be making hard decisions. So that's why I start now and just start having those conversations and seeing, what's available, what you can afford, and what's even around you, because everyone
Mhm.
lives in very different areas.
Yeah, and like you
Absolutely.
said, being prepared, because
Yeah.
just getting all of the information that you can at the beginning.
Mhm.
When we see patients in senior care in clinic, we have a new patient visit, social work sees them first before the doctor does. So if I don't have time to talk to the patient's the caregiver, because the half hour is usually really the patient assessment, I will connect with the family member afterwards and go over a bunch of resources, even ones that they may not need yet. Another thing along with that is a caregiver. And I think somebody mentioned this before, incorporating, and maybe it was you, Veronica, incorporating caregiving early. So having someone come in that the person knows, and instead of when they are more advanced and maybe distrusting of this person, establishing a relationship, they'll at least know that they should or do know this person for as long as possible.
Mhm. And also, like I have someone in one of my support groups, so he's caring for his wife. They have no children. They don't really have much family. So he has a geriatric care manager who helps him navigate for him and also for himself. He said, because he's been hospitalized multiple times due to illness, and then that care manager kicked in and got in-home care for his wife while he was suddenly hospitalized. So again, a geriatric care manager is someone that you pay on an hourly basis. You can keep them on around, but at least you start those conversations. I was so impressed with him that he thought about that. He's like, I have it for me, I have it for her, I have everything all written out. He's like, because if something happens to me, what will happen to her? And I want to make sure that I know she is safe. Realizing that, life can happen. So just looking at that whole world of just being planning as far ahead as possible, and just, trying to stay in one foot in front of it, but it's really hard.
I'm also a fan of the dementia directive. It's a free tool, but it walks you through different stages of, okay, if something were to happen in the early stage, what kind of medical care would I want for my loved one? What about the middle stage? This is the symptom. What about the late stage? So it shows that it's fluid, things can change. And at what point will you just kind of focus on, comfort care versus treatment, and then just kind of starting to write that out and start thinking about it. And how Monica said, it doesn't have to be done today, but you just want to have these conversations because they're not a one and done type of conversation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Susan, you're on mute. But
I'm
I
on
think
mute because I'm
Thank you.
actually at Kensington right now in Northern California, and every day at 4 o'clock they have live music that comes in,
Oh,
and they're obviously getting prepared. And I thought I better mute myself because I hear a bunch of music. Um, anyway, you guys are just such a wealth of information and knowledge, and I'll let Bonnie close this out, but I have one last question. We're talking about planning and we're talking about being proactive, and does anything such exist when it's like start here and go down here. That's like a checklist that I could print out. Anybody know about a caregiver?
That's a really good question. I haven't come across something like that, but the Alzheimer's Association might be somebody that would have something like that because they do have a lot of tip sheets.
I think HFC needs.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll just say Hilarity for Charity does have a caregiver guide. It's called the HFC Road Trip, and you can find it on our website. Just click under caregivers. When you get there, the website, you can just Google Hilarity for Charity or wearehfc.org. And the Caregiver Road Trip is an interactive guide where you can pop in and out at any stage through the Alzheimer's or dementia journey. Everything from, all the questions that you didn't know you needed to ask, hopefully are answered in there, and we keep adding sections all the time. So that's a great place to start. Susan, if you're talking, maybe I'll put it in the chat, the link to it.
We'll provide that in the follow-up that we will give
Perfect.
to everybody. But Veronica, Lori wants to know, where does she find a caregiver dementia directive?
I'm going to try dementiadirective.org.
Okay, well, that's easy.
Amazing. Thank you. I wanted to ask you the same thing. So I just want to extend a huge thank you to all the panelists. It was a delight learning from you and getting to know you all a little bit better. And Susan, thank you for hosting this conversation. Kensington is really a true partner in dementia care and in senior living, and is so supportive of Hilarity for Charity and all of these efforts. So thank you for hosting.
And you know what? To Cedars-Sinai and Stanford and UCLA and our dear friends at Sutter and the Dolby Memory Center, you guys work with a phenomenal team, and they're so lucky to have you because you're the front line. You really are. So thank you. And everybody have a really nice evening or afternoon, and certainly get the turkey ready. Thank you. Take care.
Everyone.
Thank you.